My name is Taylor. I'm 29 and I live in the basement of a home I legally co-own with my mother and sister. And no, that's not a figure of speech. I'm not just some grown-up kid refusing to move out. My name is on the deed. I helped buy this house. I pay the mortgage. I pay utilities. I shovel snow. This isn't their house that I happen to live in. It's our house. I just happen to have the basement suite, or what used to be my sanctuary. That basement, it was the only space in my life where I had real control. It's where I crashed after 12-hour night shifts in a hospital, where I could sink into bed as the sun came up, shut out the noise, and just exist. No scrubs, no machines beeping, no people demanding pieces of me I couldn't afford to give. It was quiet, sacred, mine. The rest of the house, let's just say it was the opposite of peace. Mom's the kind of person who thrives in chaos, always moving, always organizing other people's lives, but never asking first. My sister, Maya, is 2 years younger and still thinks the world owes her something just for showing up. We were supposed to be equal owners of this house, but the way they treated me like the backup character in their sitcom told another story. It's been tolerable. Barely. I lived downstairs, and they mostly lived upstairs. We had our unspoken boundaries. I never complained when Maya's friends came over and used the kitchen like a frat house. I never asked Mom to turn the volume down when she had her soap operas on full blast at 8 a.m. while I was trying to sleep after a night shift. I let a lot of things go, but they took it all for granted. And then out of nowhere, it changed. It was a Monday morning. I had just come home after a hellish night shift, 2 codes. 1 patient flatlined, and a child who reminded me way too much of my niece. I was wrecked. My only plan was to shower, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and sleep for 10 uninterrupted hours. Instead, my mom ambushed me in the kitchen. She was wearing her "I'm about to make your life difficult" smile. You know the one. "I have some exciting news," she chirped, pouring herself coffee. I blinked. That phrase never ended well. She continued, "Your cousin Marisol is coming to stay with us. You remember her from Puerto Rico?" I didn't at all. "She'll be bringing her 2 little boys, 5 and 3, just for the summer. Isn't that great?" I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "Where exactly are they going to stay?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Oh, in the basement. There's that spare room down there, right?" "That spare room? The one next to my bedroom? The one my brother used once a month when he came to visit? The only buffer I had between myself and the rest of the world." I set down my keys slowly. "Mom, I work nights. I sleep during the day. I need quiet. You're putting 2 toddlers in the room next to me." She waved me off. "It's just for the summer, and you have your own bedroom. It's not like they'll be in your bed." My blood pressure spiked. It's not about the bed. It's the noise, the chaos. I don't even know these people. She gave me that look, the one that says you're making a scene without saying a word. "You're being dramatic." She said, "It's family. You can't be that selfish." Selfish. That word hit like a slap. And she wasn't done. She leaned in with a sly smile. "Besides, you won't even be home that much. Maya and I are going on that 10-day cruise next month. You'll have company." Company. Company. I had been counting down to that cruise not for them, but for me. 10 glorious days with the house to myself, peace, solitude, no Mom, no Maya, no slammed doors or clinking heels or Taylor. Can you just... That vacation was supposed to be mine too, in a different way. And now she was telling me that instead of quiet, I'd be stuck babysitting strangers. I stared at her, stunned. "You're seriously dropping this on me the day before it happens?" She shrugged. "Well, I didn't think it would be a big deal." Of course she didn't. Because in her mind, I didn't need space, or rest, or peace. I was just the live-in daughter who'd make room, pick up slack, and smile while doing it. Again. That's when I knew I was done being silent, done being the convenient one, done being the invisible co-owner. They wanted to treat me like I didn't exist. Fine. Let's see what happens when I really disappear. The day I got the message that Marisol and her 2 boys had landed at the airport, I knew the fuse had been lit. It wasn't just that I didn't know them, though that was true. I literally had no idea what the kids' names were. I'd seen Marisol maybe twice in my life at large chaotic family reunions where everyone pretended to be close for 2 hours, then ghosted each other for the next decade. But now, thanks to my mother's unchecked hospitality complex, she and her toddlers were moving into my home, my floor, my sanctuary. I barely slept that first night. Every creak of the stairs made my heart race. Every child's footstep echoed like a drum in my skull. I had noise-canceling headphones and blackout curtains, but you can't block out chaos when it lives on the other side of your bedroom wall. By day 3, the youngest had figured out how to open my bedroom door. There I was, dead asleep after working an ER shift where I literally helped save someone's life, and suddenly I'm being poked in the face by a sticky toddler asking if I have cookies. Cookies? I bolted upright in bed, disoriented and angry, heart racing like I'd just been shocked with a defibrillator. Marisol came running in moments later, laughing it off, scooping him up with a sheepish grin. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, he's so curious." Curious? No, he was trespassing. But I didn't say that. Instead, I sat there, frozen. A smile stretched across my face so tight it hurt my cheeks. I muttered something about needing sleep and closed the door as soon as she left. That night, I didn't sleep at all. My mom called me selfish again the next day when I brought it up, told me I needed to be more flexible, that Marisol had come all this way and I should be grateful we could host family. Grateful. I was running on 3 hours of sleep, drinking coffee like water, and listening to Thomas the Tank Engine echo through the vents while trying to finish charting patient records. Grateful didn't even belong in the same galaxy as what I was feeling. And then there was the laundry. Let me tell you something about basements and laundry rooms, they don't mix well with toddlers. Every time I came upstairs for a breather or to microwave a meal, the washer and dryer were running. Piles of children's clothes stacked across every surface, wet towels draped over banisters, my detergent, my dryer sheets. No one asked. I mentioned it to Maya over dinner one night. She barely looked up from her phone. "You're always so touchy," she said. "God forbid someone uses a washing machine you didn't invent." I laughed loudly, then I stood up and walked away. Touchy. Try tired. Try exhausted. Try completely fed up with being treated like I don't matter in a house I helped pay for. Still, I tried to endure. I thought, okay, just make it to the cruise. Once they're gone, you'll have space again. But even that illusion shattered when I overheard Marisol talking to my mom in the kitchen one night. I was heading upstairs quietly, thinking they were both out. Instead, I caught the tail end of the conversation. "So, I guess I'll just stay down there with the boys while you're gone. It's been working okay." While you're gone, she assumed had been told that she'd be staying for the cruise too. 10 more days, just me and her, and 2 unpredictable, sticky-handed, noise-generating gremlins. I turned and walked back down the stairs like a ghost. At that moment, it clicked they had planned this, not just the stay but the dumping. They wanted to disappear for 10 days of umbrella drinks and buffets, while I involuntarily played host, nanny, and security guard to people I hadn't even known a month ago. That's when I started planning. I didn't scream, I didn't argue, I didn't even vent anymore. I just got quiet and began crafting my exit. First thing I did, booked a hotel, a quiet, well-reviewed place with blackout curtains and an indoor pool. 10 nights, paid in full, non-refundable. Then, I backed up everything from my room to a locked hard drive and placed my valuables in a portable safe, the kind with steel cables and a biometric lock. I moved my backup stash of meds, cash, and legal papers to a friend's place just in case. Then came the cameras. I didn't install them in bedrooms or bathrooms. Obviously, I'm not a monster, but the shared areas of the basement, the laundry zone, my common living space, all legally mine as a co-owner. Fully monitored, motion-activated, audio-enabled. This wasn't about surveillance. This was about evidence. Because something told me this story wasn't going to end quietly. The final days before my mom and sister's cruise felt like watching a slow-moving train approach a cliff. Everyone was oblivious to the fall but me. They packed sun hats and sandals, talked about excursions and beachside cocktails. My mother gushed about how good it would be for Marisol to have some time to herself while I was around to help. Not once did anyone ask if I agreed. Not once did anyone say thank you. By the time they were loading their suitcases into the Uber, I was a ghost in my own home, unseen, unspoken to, and conveniently available to absorb whatever burden they offloaded. I watched from the front steps, arms crossed, face blank, as Mom blew a kiss and Maya shouted, "Have fun holding down the fort!" I didn't wave back. I closed the door behind them and locked it, slowly. Then I went straight to my room and zipped up my suitcase. The hotel was already paid for, my bag was packed, my exit strategy was airtight. But this wasn't just a retreat, this was a lesson. Before I left, I typed out a message in our family group chat, just a few cold, carefully chosen words. Reminder: I will not be home for the duration of your trip. I am unavailable. Please ensure Marisol and the kids have alternative arrangements. Any damage to my property will be billed directly. Security measures are in place. Delivered, read, no reply. Until 2 hours later, when Maya dropped in a single emoji. Classic. I slipped out that evening without saying goodbye, left a copy of the house key in the safe, checked all cameras. Everything was clean, labeled, documented. I even left a folder labeled "In case of emergency" on the kitchen table with contacts, hospital info, the number to a local taxi company. Since I was apparently the backup parent. Then I drove away. That first night in the hotel, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling fan above me, basking in silence. Pure, undisturbed, golden silence. No footsteps, no cartoons, no sticky fingers on my doorknob. It was the first time in weeks I felt like my nervous system could exhale. And back at the house, all hell was quietly beginning to break loose. The cameras weren't for spying. I didn't sit there watching live feeds, but they did send me notifications, motion alerts, and audio clips, which I scanned through at the end of each day like checking voicemail. The first 2 days were normal chaos. The kids screamed, ran in circles. Marisol tried to parent from the couch with one eye on her phone. By day 3, the messages got interesting. I received a voicemail from Marisol. "Hey, I was just wondering if you could pick up some more milk and snacks on your way home. The boys are really picky eaters." There was no home for me to come to. I didn't reply. Day 4, the motion sensor in the laundry room recorded a meltdown, Marisol shouting, one of the boys crying, and something breaking. The audio caught it all. Day 5, she called my mom twice, then left a voicemail. "Karen, I can't do this alone. Taylor's not helping at all. I thought she'd be here. This isn't what I agreed to." You know what? That part stung a little. Because exactly this isn't what I agreed to either. But the real beauty came on day 6, when Marisol apparently decided to call Maya. That voicemail came in at 11:47 p.m. "Maya, it's me again. Can you maybe come back early or, send someone? I don't know what's going on with Taylor, but I can't manage 2 kids by myself with no car, no help, and no idea where anything is." Reality. It always shows up late, but it never misses an appointment. By day 8, my phone was vibrating with messages from unknown numbers, family members, cousins. Someone had started a chain reaction. Apparently, my mother had downplayed the whole thing before leaving. Told Marisol, "Don't worry, Taylor works nights but she'll be around. She's super independent." Which, translated, meant she'll babysit without being asked because she always folds. Except this time, I didn't. This time, I folded my suitcase and vanished. And I wasn't done. On day 9, I emailed my real estate attorney. The subject line, "Request for property boundary clarification." We co-owned the house, yes, but if I was going to continue living there, I wanted legal firepower in my corner. Because something told me this was just the beginning. The night before their cruise ended, I slept like a stone, no alarms, no anxiety, just the satisfying knowledge that by the time my mother and sister walked through that front door, they'd have no choice but to face the crater they helped create. I checked out of the hotel the next morning with coffee in one hand and peace in the other. When I pulled into the driveway that evening, the house looked exhausted. Lights on in every room, shoes scattered across the porch, a pile of garbage bags leaning haphazardly against the recycling bin. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of cheap pizza, sweat, and something that should have gone into the fridge days ago. I could hear the kids crying before I even opened the door. Perfect. Marisol was pacing the kitchen barefoot, phone in hand, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh my God, you're back." I didn't answer. I walked past her, down the stairs, and found the basement in shambles. My living area looked like a playroom exploded, crumbs on the floor, juice stains on the rug, my laundry hamper knocked over and full of tiny socks. The spare room door was wide open. Inside, a half-deflated air mattress and an empty juice box sat in the middle of the floor like sad little monuments to my lost solitude. I pulled out my phone, opened my camera, and started taking photos. Click, click, click. Marisol came downstairs. "Taylor, listen, I didn't know you weren't going to be here. Your mom said—" I raised a hand. "Please don't finish that sentence." She stopped. I pointed to the camera mounted discreetly in the corner. Everything that happened down here documented, audio included. Her eyes went wide. "Wait, you recorded us?" "In the common areas, legal under co-ownership. Don't worry, I didn't spy on your kids. But I did record every tantrum, every broken item, and every time someone went through my things without permission." Marisol started to cry. I didn't feel bad. "I'm not here to fight," I said coldly. "I just want you out. Tonight." "But where am I supposed to go?" "Not my problem," I said, and walked past her to grab a trash bag. The front door opened 20 minutes later. I was upstairs wiping down the kitchen counters when I heard the familiar shriek of my sister. "Taylor, are you serious right now?" "Ah, showtime." I turned slowly. Maya stood in the entryway, sunburned and furious, dragging her suitcase like a battering ram. My mother was right behind her, looking more shocked than angry. "Why is Marisol leaving?" Mom asked, her voice sharp. I dried my hands with a dish towel. "Because I'm done being treated like I'm invisible. I told you I wouldn't be here. I warned you not to leave her with me. You didn't listen. You abandoned her," my mother snapped. She was overwhelmed. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean the way you abandoned me? In my own home, in the one space I've begged to be respected for years." "Don't be dramatic," Maya muttered. "It's not like they were in your room." "No," I said, voice steady. "They were in everything else. In my bathroom, on my couch, in my laundry, in my food, in my face." Mom huffed. "It was temporary." "Temporary," I echoed. "So was a tornado." I opened the folder I'd set on the counter, my documented list of damages, backed by time-stamped footage. Here's a breakdown of what was destroyed, what was used without permission, and what needs to be cleaned professionally. You have 1 week to reimburse me. After that, I file a claim through our co-ownership agreement. Their faces changed. I saw it hit, not just the inconvenience, but the liability, the legal reality that I wasn't bluffing. That for once, I wasn't asking, I was informing. "You're blowing this way out of proportion," Maya said. I stepped closer. "You don't get to tell me what my boundaries are, not anymore." Mom opened her mouth again, probably to guilt me, but I held up a hand. "This conversation is over. You violated my space. You dismissed my warnings. You treated me like a backup plan." I gestured to the trash bags, the chaos, the silence that had become my only weapon. "Well, now you're on your own." I went back downstairs and closed the door behind me. For the first time in weeks, I could hear nothing but my own breathing. The week that followed was oddly quiet. There were no more late-night footsteps stomping above me, no kids thundering down the stairs, no sticky fingerprints on my fridge or cereal bowls left in the sink. Just silence. Marisol packed up and left the very next morning, calling for a rideshare while my mom and sister stood awkwardly at the front door. She didn't might hug anyone goodbye. She barely looked me in the eye. I didn't blame her. She hadn't asked to be the pawn in someone else's manipulation. She'd been used to by the same people who'd used me for years. The truth, I didn't hate her. I pitied her. But pity doesn't clean up juice stains or repay stolen peace, so I let her go with nothing more than a nod. Maya, on the other hand, didn't speak to me for 3 full days. Passive-aggressive silence, classic middle child protest. She'd clomp through the kitchen loudly, slam cabinets, make coffee with all the subtlety of a marching band, but she never said a word. Until day 4. She cornered me in the hallway after work, arms folded tight across her chest, like she was holding in a monologue she'd rehearsed in the mirror. You really think you're the victim in all this? I didn't flinch. No, I think I was ignored. There's a difference. She scoffed. You embarrassed Mom. She embarrassed herself. You made Marisol cry. She weaponized assumptions. I simply corrected them. Her mouth twisted like she wanted to yell, but there was nothing left to say. She knew I was right. She just hated that I finally acted on it. By the end of the week, I received an envelope under my bedroom door, my reimbursement for cleaning costs and damages, paid in full, no note, no apology, just cash. Good. I didn't need their words. I needed their respect. And slowly, I got it. The next few weeks were quiet, uncomfortably so. Maya tiptoed around me like a cat near a dog that growled once. My mom barely spoke unless necessary. The balance had shifted. I wasn't the live-in fallback anymore. I wasn't the silent support beam holding up their dysfunction. I had become something they couldn't quite label but definitely couldn't ignore. I spent more time upstairs after that, not to bond, just to exist, loudly, in the space I co-owned. I watched TV on the living room couch. I made coffee at 2 a.m. I hosted a friend once, just to see their eyebrows twitch. It was petty, but it felt like breathing. And when my mother finally sat down beside me one Sunday afternoon and asked, "Did you really hate us that much?" I just stared at her. Then I said, "No, I hated how little you listened." She didn't reply. Because she knew. She always knew. It's been 3 months since the day I walked out of my own house and let it implode without me. You'd be surprised how much can shift in a few weeks when people finally realize the quiet one doesn't owe them patience anymore. These days, things are civil, not warm, not cozy, but tolerable. Like coworkers in a long hallway who nod but never stop to talk. And honestly, that's an upgrade. My mom still tries occasionally, little olive branches in the form of folded towels or I saved you leftovers texts. She hasn't apologized, at least not directly, but she's no longer making decisions without me. I guess once you slap someone with a boundary hard enough, they finally see the outline. Maya keeps her distance. I'm not sure she even fully understands what happened, but I don't need her to. I'm not her teacher. I'm not their anything anymore. And that's the biggest change of all. For years, I had operated like a second spine in this house, always adjusting, always bending, always absorbing the strain. I convinced myself that peace meant silence, that family meant compromise without limits, that love meant never saying no. But the truth? Love without respect is just duty with a guilt complex. They didn't treat me like family. They treated me like infrastructure. Until I broke down. And when I rebuilt myself, I did it with locks, with limits, with lines they don't get to cross again. Here's what I've learned, what I wish someone had told me sooner. You can't guilt someone into respecting you. You can't beg for boundaries and expect people to honor them out of love. People like my mom, like Maya, like so many others don't hear words. They only respond to consequences. And the scariest, most powerful consequence of all, disengagement. The moment I stopped arguing, stopped explaining, stopped playing their version of keep the peace, they panicked. Because suddenly, they weren't dealing with the familiar sister or daughter they could ignore. They were dealing with someone who had stepped out of the role. And they had no script for that. If you're listening to this and it resonates, if you've ever felt like the invisible glue holding everyone else's comfort together, please hear me now. You don't have to light yourself on fire to keep your family warm. It's not your job to be the emotional shock absorber for people who refuse to grow up. You're allowed to walk out. You're allowed to let them struggle. You're allowed to make your peace more important than their expectations. And if they call you selfish, good. Wear it like armor. Because sometimes, selfish is just what people say when they can't manipulate you anymore. As for me, I'm still in the basement, but now it feels like mine again. I installed a sliding barn door at the top of the stairs, not because I need it closed all the time, but because the act of closing it is now my choice. I work my shifts, I sleep soundly, I light candles again, I play my favorite music without feeling like I have to lower the volume out of guilt. And that 10-day cruise? Well, I'm planning my own solo trip next spring. Not to escape them, but to celebrate me. Because I finally understand the difference between being alone and being free. If you've made it this far, thank you. And if something in this story hit close to home, don't scroll away without sharing your experience in the comments. I read every one. You never know who needs to hear your version of the truth. Hit like if you've ever drawn a boundary that others didn't respect until you made them. Subscribe if you're done being the quiet one who's expected to endure everything. And share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Your space, your peace, your rules. They don't get to take that away. Not anymore. Story 2. My name is Lucian Trent, and I'll tell you this much: being invisible isn't always a curse. Sometimes, invisibility is armor, especially when the room is full of people who only recognize value when it's embossed in gold or printed on a business card. People like Vincent Harrow, the father of the man marrying my sister. It was at the wedding that Vincent passed me by like I was smoke. Not a glance, not a nod, just a soft scoff as he adjusted his cufflinks. The same way men like him mark their territory with silence and polished disdain. But I didn't flinch. I had a drink in my hand, a tailored navy suit on, and a quiet secret: the company he'd been aggressively trying to acquire for the past 6 months. I co-founded it, built it, ran it from the ground up. And this man, this self-made mogul, had no clue who I was. He only saw the surface, a name without pedigree, a +1 without a title. And I was fine with that, because in just a few minutes, they'd call me up to speak, just a casual toast, apparently a last-minute addition to the schedule, or maybe someone slipped my name in. Either way, I was ready. I always am. But the part, my moment of clarity and reveal, that comes later. First, let me rewind, because the truth behind who I am and why Vincent Harrow's smug indifference meant nothing to me, that's buried under a decade of survival, sacrifice, and silence. Let me take you back to the day the noise started. I was 22, finals week, sleep-deprived and living on energy bars and anxiety. My phone rang during a late review session, and I knew immediately something was wrong. People don't call during finals unless it's bad news. It was my academic advisor. She sounded like she was underwater. "Lucian, I'm so sorry. There was an accident. Your father, he didn't make it." Those words didn't just knock the wind out of me, they collapsed the entire world. My father, who had planned a trip to see me and my younger sister, Mira, was gone. Just like that. I drove home in a blur. Mira was only 17, 1 week away from high school graduation. Our mother had left years earlier, vanished into some other life with some other family. It was just the two of us now, orphans. One car. No clue what came next. The funeral came and went like a fever dream, but reality slammed in quickly after. Debt, endless, merciless debt. Turns out, Dad had been drowning silently. Missed payments, business loans, mortgage lines. We didn't just lose him, we lost the house, the car, the workshop. All we had left were the clothes I packed for spring break and each other. I had a scholarship that covered tuition, but not rent, not food, not Mira's education. We were on our own, completely. That first night, after the last relative left and the door clicked shut behind them, I sat on the floor with Mira, her knees pulled into her hoodie, eyes red from crying, and I knew there's no one coming. I was it. That night, I made a decision: I'd finish school, no matter what it cost me, but I'd also work, whatever job I could find, and I'd keep us afloat, even if I drowned in the process. I picked up shifts at the campus cafe, then as a late-night delivery runner, I'd drop off takeout at 200 A&M, crash for 3 hours, and show up for lectures still wearing my work shoes. Mira started community college. I covered every expense: groceries, tuition, the cracked iPhone screen she didn't want to admit she'd broken. My girlfriend left me, said I was emotionally unavailable. She wasn't wrong. But love didn't fit in my life. Not when I was sleeping 4 hours a night and eating ramen so Mira could have fresh produce. Character, they say, is built through adversity. I think that's cute. Mine was carved with overdraft fees, late-night panic attacks, and the endless guilt of never doing enough, but I kept going. After graduation, there was no party. No "we did it" photos. Just a sigh and a job offer from a mid-tier logistics firm. Nothing fancy, just spreadsheets and endless client calls. But it paid. I moved Mira and me into a tiny one-bedroom apartment. She got the bedroom, I took the pull-out couch, I cooked, she studied, I worked, she graduated with honors, and through it all, I kept learning. Night courses, certifications, data systems, CRM tools. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't afford to stay stagnant. And then, one rainy night, it happened. A message from Levi Salas, a former classmate. He remembered my business instincts, said he and another friend were prototyping a tool for automating business ops. They needed someone to handle back-end logistics and client outreach. It was risky, but it was real. I said yes. So began the double life. Day job logistics firm drone. Night job startup warrior. We worked from coffee shops, shared cloud storage. Sometimes I coded on the subway. Sometimes I pitched our product while half asleep. We lost our third partner after a dry spell. Couldn't blame him. It was brutal. But Levi and I stayed. Barely. Then one company piloted our platform and cut their processing time by 45%. That number changed everything. Suddenly, we had inbound interest, investors sniffing around, tech blogs whispering our name. But I didn't quit my day job. Not yet. I'd seen how fast security could vanish. I stayed under the radar, handling customer support from break rooms, debugging code in parking lots. Levi became the face. TEDx talks, podcasts, social media. I was the ghost in the machine, the man behind the brand. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Because I wasn't chasing attention. I was building a future Mira could count on. She got into her dream university. I paid every bill, on time, every month. We weren't rich, but we were safe. And that felt like everything. But the world is funny. Just when you think you've escaped the past, it finds you again. It was a Tuesday night. I just collapsed on the couch, tie loosened, eating cold noodles. Mira called. She sounded breathless. "Lucian," she said, "I have something to tell you." I thought maybe she got an internship or failed a class. "I'm getting married?" My fork froze midair. "To who?" "Jonah," she said quickly. "Jonah Harrow. We've been serious for a while. I just didn't know how to tell you." Harrow. The name slapped something inside my memory. I'd heard it, in emails, acquisition offers, a major client. And then it clicked. Jonah Harrow was Vincent Harrow's son. The same Vincent Harrow who'd been trying unsuccessfully to buy out our company. The same man whose emails reeked of thinly veiled condescension and power plays. The kind of businessman who believes deals are made by crushing the other party's will. Now, he was about to be my sister's father-in-law. I felt nothing, just cold, precise awareness. I'd like to meet him. I said, we agreed on dinner the following Friday. Nothing fancy. I offered to cook, mostly because I wanted to control the environment. Mira said Jonah loved Italian food. I made lasagna from scratch, poured a bottle of mid-tier red, and tried to ignore the tension curling in my chest like a bad omen. Jonah arrived on time, tall, polite, clean-cut in the way private school kids tend to be. He brought flowers for Mira and wine for me, talked a little too much, smiled a little too easily, but I listened. I watched, and I waited. He was charming, I'll give him that, asked thoughtful questions, spoke about Mira with clear affection. I didn't hate him, which was a problem, because I wanted to. I needed a reason to pull this apart, but what I saw was sincerity. Even if his last name made my stomach twist. At some point, I asked the question, Jonah Harrow, as in any relation to Vincent Harrow, Harrow Enterprises. His fork paused mid-air for a second too long. He's my father. Of course he was. I didn't react, just nodded, and I let the moment pass like it didn't mean anything. Because it did, but I needed to see more. That night, after Mira went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen. The dishes were done, the wine bottle was half empty, and my laptop glowed with unread messages. 3 new emails, all from Harrow Enterprises, subject lines like, following up on our acquisition offer. Would love to discuss synergies. Time-sensitive opportunity, let's connect. I didn't respond, I never had. But now I knew exactly who was behind them, and who would be across the aisle from me at Mira's wedding. It was almost poetic. Vincent Harrow, billionaire, corporate bruiser, all sharp suits and sharper smiles, was about to become family. And he still had no idea the nameless co-founder he'd been trying to strong-arm into selling was me. Mira was glowing in the weeks that followed, She called every night with updates venues, florists, fittings. I listened, made the appropriate noises, and stayed out of the way. She'd earned her joy, and I would never tarnish it, not even with the knowledge that the man walking her down the aisle had once tried to crush the very thing I'd built to keep her safe. Eventually came the family meet and greet, held at a high-end country club. Of course, all white marble and wine pairings. Mira insisted I come. I couldn't say no, so I showed up in my best suit, hair trimmed, shoes shined. I looked like someone you wouldn't ignore, but Vincent Harrow didn't even blink. He sized me up in one glance, shoes to jawline, then looked straight past me like I wasn't there. When we were introduced, he extended a hand without warmth. Lucian, just her brother, right? Our father had died 6 years ago. Vincent didn't ask, didn't care. Correct, I said flatly, just her brother. He nodded vaguely and moved on. I didn't bristle, I didn't speak, because moments like that, they're more valuable than gold. They tell you exactly what someone sees and, more importantly, what they don't. Later that evening, I caught Jonah at the bar, just the two of us. He looked relieved to see a familiar face in a sea of polished strangers. I hope tonight wasn't too much, he said, sipping his drink. Not at all. You look like you survived. He laughed. My dad can be intense. That's one word for it. Jonah glanced around. He means well, mostly, but he's old school, very results-driven. I didn't say anything, let the silence hang. Then I looked him dead in the eye. Just so we're clear, I said, I don't care how much money he has. Mira's happiness is not a deal he gets to broker. Jonah nodded. She told me about your past, what you went through together. I respect it. I respect you. He said it like he meant it, and I wanted to believe him. The wedding loomed like a tide you can't stop. I helped where I could cut checks for things Mira didn't know needed paying. Quietly, no credit, no questions. The night before the wedding, I stood alone on the hotel balcony, watching the city lights blur into amber streaks. Felix called. You good? He asked. As good as anyone can be when they're about to share air with Vincent Harrow for 6 straight hours. Did you tell him? Nope. Still thinks I'm some broke older brother with a suit he borrowed from Goodwill. Felix chuckled. So, what's the plan? I looked out into the darkness. No plan, just a speech. Oh no, you're going to burn the place down, aren't you? I smiled. Not quite. I'm just going to introduce myself properly. The ceremony was beautiful. Mira looked radiant. I walked her down the aisle because nobody else could. It wasn't even a discussion, just understood. At the reception, I mostly stayed in the shadows. Let her have the spotlight. She deserved it, every inch. But then came the moment. One of the servers tapped my shoulder. You're next, she said. Mike's ready. Next for what? Your speech? You're listed after the best man? I hadn't signed up for this, hadn't written a thing. But somehow, I wasn't surprised. Mira's handwriting was all over that decision. So I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked up. Good evening, I began, my voice steady. My name is Lucian Trent. I'm Mira's brother. People turned. Forks paused mid-air. I didn't come here to give a speech, but since I've been given the floor, I'll use it the best way I know how to tell you the truth. I paused, looked around the room, found Mira's eyes, found Jonah's, and yes, found Vincent's too. Our father died when Mira was 17. I was 22. We had no safety net, no inheritance, just bills, grief, and each other. I kept my voice calm, matter of fact. I worked 3 jobs to keep her in school, slept on floors, took night classes, watched the world pass by while trying to give her a future. The room fell silent. Even the servers stopped moving. I co-founded a company during that time, nights, weekends. In between double shifts, we built something out of nothing. It's quiet work, background work, but it powers some of the largest operations in the country. I could see Vincent now, frozen, pale. I've never cared about titles or recognition, but tonight, I want you all to know something. Mira's strength isn't inherited. It wasn't gifted. It was earned, forged in fire, and I would do it all over again for her. Then I turned to the couple. Jonah, take care of her. She's the best thing that will ever happen to you. I stepped back to polite applause. Mira was in tears. Jonah nodded solemnly. And Vincent just stared. because now he knew. After the speech, as I passed through the lobby, Vincent intercepted me. "Lucian," he said, voice tight, you co-founded Inspiranet." "Yes." "You've been turning down our acquisition offers." I nodded. He swallowed. "Why didn't you say anything?" I smiled. "Because I wanted to see how you treated me when you thought I was nobody." He opened his mouth, then closed it. No comeback, just confusion. "You've built something impressive," he finally said. I didn't reply. Because praise means nothing when it comes after disrespect. The rest of the night was uneventful. Mira danced like someone finally free of shadows. Jonah was gracious. Vincent stayed polite but quiet. And that was enough. I didn't need revenge, just clarity. Vincent Harrow would never forget my name again. But more importantly, he'd remember the cost of making assumptions. The Monday after the wedding, I returned to my office early. The desk was still cluttered from pre-wedding chaos, paperwork half-filed, sticky notes layered like sediment, but the light that streamed in felt different now. Not warmer, exactly, just clearer. In the corner sat a folder labeled Harrow, Revised Acquisition Terms. Vincent had emailed Felix at 3:07 a.m. that night. The man didn't even wait 24 hours before shifting back into business mode. The subject line read, "Let's revisit this conversation." I flipped the folder open, read the new numbers. He'd nearly doubled the offer, streamlined the language, removed the usual clause that allowed him to gut a company from the inside. Smart move. Still not enough. Felix walked in an hour later with 2 coffees and an eyebrow raised. "So, are we considering it now?" "No," I said flatly, "just means he's rattled. He's not used to being blindsided. He's not used to being outplayed." Felix grinned and sank into the chair across from mine. "You ever going to tell him how close he came to owning this place?" I shrugged. That's not the story he gets. Why not? It'd kill him. Exactly, which is why I won't say a word. Sometimes, silence is the sharpest knife. Mira and Jonah went on their honeymoon 2 days later. Greece, some island with blue rooftops and no cell service. She left me a note. "You didn't have to make that speech, but I'm so glad you did. Thank you for everything, always. Love you. M." I tucked it into my desk drawer next to my father's old wristwatch. A week passed, then 2. Vincent sent another message, less aggressive this time. "Let's grab coffee, just a conversation." I ignored it. A month later, he tried again, this time, through a mutual investor. "Maybe we can find a way to partner." I sent back a polite one-line reply. "We're focused on independent growth at this time. Wishing you all the best." No need for venom, the polite dismissal stings more. Over time, the ripple effects set in. Harrow Enterprises continued licensing our software same as every other client. Their requests came through the help desk portal. Their developers joined the same Slack channels as the rest. No custom treatment, no shortcuts. Vincent had to live with that, knowing the platform his empire relied on came from the invisible man he'd once dismissed at a dinner table. Jonah never brought up the acquisition drama, whether Vincent told him or not. I don't know, but he respected boundaries, and Mira, that was enough. We built something resembling family. They'd invite me for dinners, backyard barbecues. I always showed up late and left early. I loved them, but I still needed space. You can be loyal without lingering. 2 years passed. Our company tripled in size. We opened a second office in Portland. Felix moved there with his husband. I stayed in Chicago. Mira gave birth to a baby girl named Herlina. I cried the first time I held her, not because I was sad or happy, just full. Life felt earned. One day, I walked past a bookstore and saw a business magazine in the window. The cover 10, Founders Who Changed the Future. Felix was on it. Bright smile, crisp blazer. Quote under his photo read, "You don't need to be loud to be powerful." I bought 3 copies, sent one to Mira, one to our old college advisor, kept the third in my bookshelf, unopened. I liked being the ghost. That winter, we were invited to a tech innovation gala, one of those velvet rope events with overpriced wine and underseasoned shrimp. Felix insisted I come. Just once. He said, "Let them see the brain behind the code." So I went. The lights were low, the stage spotlit. Halfway through the event, I stepped outside for air. That's when I saw him, Vincent Harrow, talking to two young founders near the bar. He hadn't seen me. I could have avoided him, slipped out, but I didn't. I walked up, slowly, calmly. He turned, for a flicker, surprise registered. Then he composed himself. "Lucian," he said, extending a hand. "Glad you came." I shook it, no warmth, just mutual acknowledgement. "Congratulations on the growth," he added. I read the Q3 stats. Impressive. "Thank you." He hesitated. "You know, I didn't expect that speech at the wedding. That makes two of us." He nodded, lips pursed. "I didn't see you clearly back then." "You didn't see me at all." Silence. "Then, that's a mistake I won't make again." I almost smiled. Good, because I won't always reintroduce myself. And with that, I walked away. A few months later, I got a letter, handwritten, from Vincent. "Lucian, I've spent a career chasing things I thought mattered. Scale, acquisitions, influence. But watching Mira and Jonah, listening to your speech, I realized I'd overlooked the most powerful metric in business character. You built something lasting, and you did it quietly. That's rare. I was wrong about you. If there's ever anything I can do, let me know. V." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That wasn't the kind of note you reply to. It was the kind you keep in a drawer, next to old wristwatches and letters from your sister. I don't tell this story to gloat. This isn't about revenge, not really. It's about identity. About how the world tries to measure you in volume and visibility. But the truth is, some of the most dangerous people, the most brilliant, the most powerful are the ones who don't ask to be seen. They wait. They build. And when the moment comes, they reveal. Not to prove anything. Just to remind the world you never needed their validation in the first place. These days, Mira runs a community wellness program for underprivileged teens. She's built the kind of life we used to fantasize about when we shared a twin mattress in that first apartment. She glows now, that quiet, anchored glow, like she's finally allowed to take up space. Jonah is steady, present, never tries to fix her, just listens, learns, loves. And me, I still don't go to every gala, still don't chase headlines, but sometimes, when people ask what I do, I tell them, I build things that last. And when they nod casually, dismissively, I smile. Because they don't know. They don't need to. Story 3. My name is Sloan Merrick. I'm 33 years old, and this is the story of how a single laugh, quiet, polite, hollow, burned down the entire life I had planned. It didn't happen in a fight, no raised voices, no flying glass, just one well-practiced chuckle at the wrong moment from the wrong man, and the silence that followed from the man I was about to marry. The moment it happened, I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't even move. I sat there, my chest tight, while something inside me cracked so clean it almost felt surgical. That night, at our rehearsal dinner, his father mocked my dead mother, turned her life into a joke, and he laughed. And that's when I knew I couldn't marry him. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted revenge, I was just done. Quietly, fully, permanently done. Because when someone you love laughs while you're being erased, you don't forget it, you don't unhear it, you don't build a future on that kind of silence. I met Evan Langford 6 years ago at a gallery opening in Beacon Hill. I was photographing the event, low pay, but free wine and decent exposure if you kept your badge on. He was there in a perfectly tailored suit, standing with his colleagues, clean lines, confident posture, the kind of man who knew how to occupy space without effort. He noticed one of my black and white prints, said it reminded him of something his mom would hang in their summer home on the Cape. He smiled, I smiled back, and I remember thinking, so this is what it feels like to be seen by someone like him. We went for coffee the next week, then drinks, then weekends in Vermont, shared playlists, grocery runs, burned lasagna, and bad movie nights. It wasn't a whirlwind, it was slower, steadier. He listened, remembered little things, never rushed. He was patient, kind, a little too polished, maybe a little too measured, but he showed up. He didn't scare easy. When I told my mom about him, she smiled the way she did when she wanted to believe something would last. He sounds like he's got a good heart. She said, let's hope he's got the strength to match it. I didn't know what she meant then. Now I do. The first time Evan met my mother, Celeste. It was a casual Sunday. We had Thai takeout on the tiny balcony of her walk-up apartment in Dorchester. She wore her old blue cardigan, the one with a small hole in the sleeve, and served iced tea in mason jars. Evan brought pie, used a napkin every time he took a bite. My mom asked him about work, books, politics. He answered with ease, charm, that slight Ivy League lilt people learn at boarding schools. After he left, I was gathering plates when she said, "He's impressive, but I hope he sees the world the way you do." I told her he was just formal, not used to how we did things. She didn't argue. She just nodded, softly, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes. A weight. A worry she didn't want to pass to me. I ignored it. We moved in together a year later, got a dog. I started getting steadier freelance gigs, weddings, editorials, even a small gallery show of my own. Evan got promoted. His suits got sharper. Life looked the way it was supposed to. Then my mother got sick. First, it was fatigue, then coughing, then scans, then stage 4, terminal. Everything stopped. I left client emails unanswered, canceled shoots, moved back into her place. I bathed her, fed her, read to her, rubbed lotion into skin that used to lift me onto her hip. Evan helped at first. He drove me to appointments when he could, brought takeout, scrolled through his phone while I adjusted her pillows. I told myself that was love, that presence even distracted was still care. The night she died, I collapsed into his arms and sobbed like a child. I remember thinking, thank God I'm not alone. But even then, even in that moment, something felt missing. Something in him had already begun to pull away, and I was too broken to chase it. A year after she passed, Evan proposed. It was on a rooftop, under string lights, with a ring that probably cost more than my mom made in a year. I said yes, through tears, through the tightness in my chest I couldn't name. I told myself it was grief. But deep down, I think part of me already knew. Wedding planning should have been joyful, and I tried. I bought a notebook, made Pinterest boards, collected fabric swatches and song lists. But every time I suggested something that reminded me of her, my mom, it got brushed aside. I mentioned placing a framed photo of her on the memory table. Evan tilted his head and smiled. Let's not make it sad. Babe, she wouldn't want that. I asked to include one line about her in my vows. Just one. He didn't even look up from his laptop. Vows are about the future, he said, not the past. His parents were worse. His mother, Margaret, had a 3-inch binder and a tone like a hotel concierge. I suggested calla lilies, my mother's favorite. Margaret barely looked up. Callous or somber, she said, let's keep things light. Darling. His father, Daniel, called me sentimental like it was a diagnosis. Big heart, Sloan, just don't let it hijack the ceremony. And Evan, he never disagreed. When I told him it hurt, he said, they mean well. But I wasn't asking them to mean well, I was asking them to see me. The silence between us started as thin hairline cracks, a skipped detail, a brushed-off idea, but every time I tried to weave my mother into the ceremony, I felt myself becoming smaller. At a tasting event, wine flowed. Daniel swirled his glass, leaned in, and said, you know, most men would be overwhelmed by how attached you still are to your mother. I blinked. She'd been dead 2 years. Evan just looked away. Later, I asked, why didn't you say something? He kept his eyes on the road. I didn't want to make a scene. You didn't want to defend me, I said. He didn't answer. That's when it began to change. Not overnight, but steadily. Margaret mispronounced my last name. On purpose. Daniel called my photography business a charming little hustle. And Evan, every time I brought it up, said the same thing. Focus on us, Sloan. But how could I? When us included people who made a hobby out of shrinking me. At a planning dinner, I suggested switching the centerpieces to lavender and cream, my mom's favorite colors. Margaret winced. Let's not make it feel like a memorial service. That night, I stood in my kitchen, alone, hands flat on the counter, just breathing. Not crying, not shaking, just hollow. That was the first night I realized I wasn't just grieving her again. I was grieving me. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Monarch Room, an exclusive venue with glass ceilings, velvet chairs, and walls so pristine they made you feel like you couldn't touch anything without leaving a mark. Margaret Langford called it understated elegance. I thought it looked like a hotel lobby that tried too hard. I wore a soft lavender dress, not flashy, not designer, just the one my mom had admired once while we were window shopping. I'd saved it for something special. I even dabbed on her favorite perfume, chamomile and bergamot. Subtle and warm, the kind of scent that didn't beg for attention but lingered anyway. I walked in, smiling on autopilot, trying to breathe like she taught me steady, slow, even when you want to run. The room was full 40 or so people, most of them Evan's side, his extended family, his parents' friends, old professors, people from the country club, all in navy suits and practiced laughter. On my side, 5. My dad, my cousin Noel, and 2 of my mom's closest friends from church. That was it. That was all. I smiled. I nodded. I took small sips of champagne and listened to people compliment the shrimp toast and the seasonal risotto like the food would distract us from the growing imbalance in the room. Evan looked comfortable, relaxed, in his element. I watched him from across the space and tried to remember the version of him I used to believe in. The one who held my hand when my mother slipped into unconsciousness. The one who sat beside me in the back pew at her funeral. The one who used to trace circles on my wrist while I cried quietly at night. But tonight, I saw something else. Distance. Practice. Polish. Then came the toasts. Margaret stood first, tapping her champagne flute with a butter knife. Her voice carried easily. "Thank you all for coming," she began, beaming like the queen of a well-curated court. "It means the world to us to celebrate Evan and Sloane, our beautiful couple." She paused for effect. I remember when Evan first brought Sloane home, I wasn't quite sure what to make of her. Artistic, independent, very expressive. A ripple of chuckles from a few tables. But I've come to appreciate her free spirit. She's taught Evan patience, that's for sure. More laughter. I smiled, small, polite, practiced, the kind of smile you learn in rooms where you're not quite welcome. Then Daniel stood. He raised his glass. I've watched my son grow into a man who makes bold decisions, and choosing Sloane, he grinned. Well, that might be his boldest yet. The room chuckled again. But let's talk about family, he said, because that's what tonight's really about. 2 families becoming one. He looked at me. Now Sloane comes from a spirited background. Her mother, Celeste, was one of a kind, very involved, always had a suggestion or two. He let that hang. Margaret added with a smirk. Oh, she definitely had opinions. Daniel chuckled. Even when we didn't ask for them, but she was generous. I'll give her that. Helped us out quite a bit over the years. He winked. Sometimes a little too much, if you ask me. Laughter, not loud, but real. And then he finished with, let's just hope Sloane doesn't inherit too much of that enthusiasm. We wouldn't want her meddling too much now, would we? I froze. It wasn't just the words. It was the laughter that followed. Not forced, not awkward, just comfortable. The kind of laughter that says we know this is rude, but we all agree it's a little true. My hand trembled around the stem of my glass, and then I looked at Evan. He was smiling, and then he laughed. Quietly, but it was there. He laughed. That was the moment everything changed. Not just the wedding, not just the relationship, everything. Because in that moment, the man I was about to marry heard his father turn my mother, the woman who raised me alone, who cleaned motel rooms at night and still made it to my PTA meetings, into a joke. And he laughed. That was my mother they were talking about. The woman who co-signed the loan that saved Daniel's restaurant in 2012. The woman who handled Margaret's taxes for 3 years for free. The woman who bought Evan's brother his last semester of books when their financial aid didn't come through in time. They turned her into a punchline. And he laughed. I stood up. My chair scraped back against the floor louder than I intended. The room froze. Silverware paused mid-air. Champagne glasses hovered. Margaret blinked. Everything all right, dear? Evan reached for my wrist. Sloane? I stepped forward. My voice trembled, but I didn't lower it. Are you serious right now? Daniel raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You stood here in front of your friends and your family and mocked the woman who made this wedding possible. The woman who helped you when you had nothing. And you think that's funny? Margaret's laugh was tight, nervous. Come now, it was just a little humor. No, I said, it was disrespect. I turned to Evan. And you laughed. His face went pale. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to embarrass me, or you didn't mean for me to finally see you. Silence. Noelle looked like she wanted to flip a table. My dad sat still, fists clenched in his lap. My mother's best friend had tears in her eyes. I looked around the room. I loved your son. I said to the Langfords, I was ready to marry into this family. But if this is how you treat the dead, if this is how you treat her, I can only imagine how you treat the living. I turned back to Evan. We're done. And I walked out. The cold night air hit my face like truth. It was the first breath I'd taken in months that didn't feel filtered. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. The next morning, I moved like a ghost through my apartment. The tea I made went cold on the counter. My phone buzzed calls, texts, missed messages. I didn't answer. I didn't want comfort. I wanted quiet. Eventually, I walked into my bedroom, pulled open the wooden keepsake box my mother had given me. She'd carved wildflowers into the lid back when her hands were still steady. Inside were her Sunday earrings, a church bulletin in her handwriting, a Polaroid of us outside the laundromat. But the locket wasn't there. The locket she gave me the night before she died, the one that held a photo of my grandmother on one side, and space for something else on the other. It was gone. I checked again. Under the earrings, beneath the photo. Nothing. Only one person had been in my room recently. Evan. He had stopped by the week before to drop off my wedding shoes. He had asked to use the bathroom. I had said yes. I picked up my phone and texted, "Did you take the locket from my mom's box?" 10 minutes passed. Then, what are you talking about? I didn't play along, it's gone. You were the last one here. He waited longer this time. I borrowed it. I just wanted to feel close to you. Borrowed. I called him. He answered fast. Sloan, I didn't steal it. I thought maybe if I held something of hers, I'd understand you better. I laughed. Cold, flat. You laughed while they mocked her, and now you think touching her jewelry makes up for that. Silence. It's at my parents' house, he said. I didn't want to lose it. Of course. I didn't tell him I was coming. I just drove. Margaret opened the door. Her face fell. Shame, maybe fear. I didn't wait. Where is it? She blinked. The locket? From the hallway. Daniel's voice. Just give it to her. Evan appeared at the top of the stairs, holding the locket between two fingers like it was an earring from a dollar store. He handed it to me. I didn't mean to hurt you. No, I said, but you didn't mean to protect me either. I opened it. My grandmother's face smiled calmly from one side. The other side, the space my mom said was for when you know was still blank. I looked at him. You love the version of me who didn't ask for much, but when I needed you to show up for me, for her you disappeared. He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, silent. Behind him, Margaret and Daniel hovered in the same polished discomfort they'd mastered their entire lives. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just turned around and walked out. The days after I ended the engagement passed like fog. Soft at the edges but heavy. I didn't answer texts. I didn't return calls. I didn't open the door when Noelle knocked with flowers and half-baked cookies. I loved her, but I wasn't ready to explain why I had walked out on a wedding 5 months in the making. What could I say? That my fiancé laughed while his father mocked my mother. That he didn't defend me. That he didn't see me not really. Even saying the words out loud felt surreal, like I'd dreamed the whole thing and was still waking up. Instead of talking, I walked. Every morning, I tied my sneakers and followed the same path my mother used to take on Sundays, past the bakery with the cracked window, around the yellow house she always said looked like a butter cookie, down to the park bench with peeling green paint, where she used to sit with her thermos and just be. One morning, I brought the locket. I sat on that bench, the same way she used to, and turned the gold chain over in my hands. I opened it. On one side, my grandmother, smiling in soft grayscale, on the other blank. The side my mom left empty for when you know, she used to say, and I finally did. Not about Evan or the Langfords or even the wedding. I knew what that blank space was for. It wasn't for a photo. It was for me. For the version of me that had stopped shrinking to fit into other people's rooms. The me who knew that love without respect is just choreography, empty gestures, and timed smiles. The me who could finally say, "My mother mattered and so do I." I walked home, made tea the way she liked it, chamomile with honey and a twist of lemon. I poured it into her chipped mug, the one with the crack she never fixed. Let it show. She used to say, that's how people know it survived. I sat on my kitchen stool and whispered softly, "Hey, Mom, I didn't stay small." The wedding dress was returned. The venue issued a partial refund. The countdown app on my phone froze at the date of the rehearsal dinner until I deleted it. People whispered. Of course, some called it brave, some called it dramatic, some didn't call it all. That was fine. What mattered wasn't what they thought. It was what I said in that room, what I said when I stood in front of two people who made their wealth from stepping on others and told them quietly, clearly no more. I hadn't just walked away from Evan. I had walked toward something I'd been chasing for years without realizing it. Wholeness. About a month later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was from Margaret. One page, typed, titled Regretful Circumstances. I didn't read past the second sentence. I dropped it into the recycling bin without another thought. I wasn't angry, I just didn't care anymore. I didn't need her words to justify what I already knew. Because the truth is, people like Margaret and Daniel don't understand grief unless it's packaged neatly in a sympathy card or folded into a speech that doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. And Evan, he never reached out again. No final plea. No dramatic gesture. Just silence. Which was fitting. Because that's what this whole thing had been about from the start. Not a wedding. Not flowers or vows or centerpieces. It was about silence. And how loud it becomes when you need someone to break it and they don't. A few months later, I got my first solo gallery show. It was called Unspoken. Black and white portraits, moments suspended in time, people mid-breath, mid-thought, mid-tear, no captions, no artist notes. I stood in a corner that night, wine in hand, watching strangers pause in front of my work. Some tilted their heads, some walked past, but a few stood still and breathed deeper, and I knew they got it. That was enough. Afterward, Noelle hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I didn't say it, but I was proud of me too. I still wear the locket sometimes. Not every day. Not to flaunt grief like jewelry, but as a quiet reminder that the people we lose don't just vanish, they become a lens through which we see everything else more clearly. And that clarity, it's a gift. Because without it, I might have walked down that aisle, I might have smiled through vows that erased the very woman who shaped me. I might have signed up for a lifetime of being politely dismissed in rooms where everyone else thought they were the main character. But I didn't. I stood up, I spoke. And I left. Not with fanfare, but with dignity. People sometimes ask me if I still believe in love. I do. Fiercely. But not the version sold in rom-coms or bridal magazines. Not the kind where you compromise yourself into invisibility. I believe in the kind of love that shows up when it's hard, that defends you when no one else does, that doesn't flinch at the messy parts of your story. The kind my mother gave me. The kind I'm learning to give myself. So if you're reading this, watching this, and wondering if it's okay to walk away when everyone else is clapping, yes. If they laugh at your grief, if they mock the people who made you who you are, if they call your memories too loud, too much, walk, run, whatever you need to do to get back to yourself. Because silence isn't neutral. Silence is a side, and you deserve someone who stands on yours. In the locket, I finally placed something in the blank side. Not a photo, not a quote, just a piece of paper folded tight. On it, one word, me. Because that's what my mother meant when she said, "You'll know." And now I do.
Because that's what my mother meant when she said, "You'll know."